Whack it.
To me, I think it's
Whack-a-mole.
Thank you all for attending this evening. It's a great crowd. We look forward to hearing from you this evening. So before we start, I'd like to welcome you to the April 18th Murray City Planning Commission. I'm going to introduce the people we have with us tonight. Starting over on your right is Scott Woodbury, Maren Patterson, Phil Markham, Sue Wilson, Lisa Mulcavic, and myself, Ned Hacker, and staff that are with us, Zach Smallwood, Jim McNulty, and Brent Farnsworth in the back, and Melinda Greenwood. Anybody else? Sue Nixon. And excused tonight is Commissioner Travis Ney. So with that, I would like to give you a few guidance that we look for in our commission meetings. We've got a lot of people tonight. So if you have electronic devices, of which I have one, I'd request that you turn them off and respect the sanctity of this meeting and those sitting with you. If you get a phone call, I'd ask that you go out in the hallway and take it. If you have a sidebar conversation you'd like to have, I would ask you that you respect everybody else that's here and take that out into the hallway as well. If you have comments, we will invite you to the podium and to give your name and your address for the record, and ask you, if you're speaking for yourself, to limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're speaking for a group, to limit your comments to 5. And perhaps a lot of people have the same comment, and we would say we've heard the same comment over and over. We have it down in the record, so if you have comments that are repetitious, we'd ask that you restrict those. Not that we don't want to hear from you. So, all right, with that, we'll move to item number 1, which is approval of the minutes from Murray Planning Commission meeting held on April 4th. And I'd ask the commissioners if you have opportunity to read those.
Yes.
Have
Yeah.
comments?
just the one change that we had in the pre-meeting.
Okay,
So,
I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the April 4th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
All right, there's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Our second agenda item is our conflict of interest. And commissioners had an opportunity to read those. Do you have any comments regarding those?
No.
No.
So I'd entertain a motion for approval of excuse me, so no conflicts of interest. Agenda item number 3 is approval of findings of fact. And everybody had opportunity to look at those.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I'll entertain a motion for approval of those.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the following findings of fact for a conditional use permit for Twin Peaks Fabrication located at 150 West, 4800 South. Conditional use permit for Tecton CrossFit located at 5941 South, 350 West. And a conditional use permit for Fashion Place Mall and Larry Miller Auto Sales at 6011 South State Street.
All right, have a motion. Any discussion?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So, in our pre-meeting, we discussed making some adjustments to our agenda this evening, thinking that agenda items number 5 and 6 are relatively short versus number 4. So I would entertain a motion for adjustment of our sequence of our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we move item number 4 back to number 6, and then auto image number 5 and Shake Shack number 6, move them up 1. So it will go auto image, Shake Shack, True North, then the text amendment.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. So, Agenda item, if you have an agenda, it would be item number 5. We're going to address first Auto Image requesting additional use permit to allow for the operation of an auto sales business on the property address 4265 South, 300 East. And Zach Smallwood is
West.
300 West?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. 300 West, and is the applicant for that request here? Good, thank you. We'll have you come up in a little bit. And Zach Smallwood will be giving us a staff report.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. This application is for an auto sales business located, like you stated, on 4265 South Commerce Drive, which is also 300 West. This is an aerial of the proposed location, and it is located in the MG zone, which auto sales are allowed subject to a conditional use permit. So the applicant is proposing to go into that shaded space that says Auto Image Sales Office right there. It's 268 square feet. That it's just going to be him operating sales out of that office. Also, going back to this, that shaded area is also to the north of that, up higher, is going to be used as customer parking. That will also be where the ADA space is proposed. The additional parking in the front of the area is for display of for sale vehicles. We have asked that the employees, because this is also occupied by the property owner, that those two people park in the rear of the property. Here's just another drawn version of the same building. We are requiring landscaping to be installed subject to our land use ordinance. And this is a floor plan of the office as well. It's just that cornered office right there. Couple photos of the site. One to make mention of is that this is where the proposed landscaping would go. So there is a little bit of fence back in the back there between that, which is allowed. So with that, additionally, we do want to cover conditional uses in general, that a conditional use is an allowed use subject to meeting any potential negative impacts that a use may cause to a property. So this is not an item where we can approve or deny. It's as long as we can mitigate those impacts, it's an approval with those conditions. So with that being said, staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit subject to the 8 conditions that are located in the staff report and are in front of you. Any questions for staff?
Zach, I just have a question on the number of cars that might be available for sale. Is there any reason to limit number of vehicles available, or?
I had gone back and forth on that. I did not, from the nature of the business, I didn't see a reason to limit the amount of cars. I don't foresee this becoming a large enterprise. It looks like it will stay relatively small, as we've seen in the past. And even if they did have additional cars, there's more than enough space in the back that they could store more if they want.
And hopefully the applicant will address that when he comes in.
Exactly. He can
Thank
do that
you.
as well.
I've just got one thing. Can you show me where the ADA space will be located?
Yes. That will be located right there. So the ADA space will be right there, and then the hashing will be right there.
Okay, and it'll be newly striped.
It will be, yeah. All of these will be newly
Meet the
striped
requirement.
spaces. Yep,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
And Zach, sorry.
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
The staff did a good job identifying concerns, one of which would be the dumpster. Has there been discussion about, in our conditions, it said inside or outside, has there been any discussion about where it would be located outside?
I haven't asked the applicant for that. I apologize.
We feel confident that there's enough space it could be adequately.
Yeah, I do, yes.
All right, anything else for staff? All right, ask the applicant to come forward. And please state your name and your address for the record. Yes, at the podium.
Kevin Northrup, Auto Image.
Auto Image. And is it same address as
Your address?
here?
Current address, 4180 South State.
Okay. Have you been able to look at the conditions for approval?
Yes.
Or will you be able to comply with them?
Oh, yes.
And I ask you if you have anything to add to the staff report.
Oh, you pretty much covered everything.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions for you?
Can you tell us how many cars you would anticipate having on the site, available?
10, 15, it'll vary, but it's mainly internet business anymore. It used to be, frontage, showing
Right.
the cars off, but everything's
That is
canceled.
typically what we experience now, yes. Okay.
Mr. Northup, are you going to be doing any sort of washing or detailing, vacuuming the cars on
Send
site?
everything out. It'll just be
Okay,
shipped.
so someone's going to buy it, they like the car, you send it out, get it detailed, bring it back.
I have it detailed before I even
Okay,
put it up for
okay.
sale.
Okay, okay.
All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So I will open this agenda item up for public comment. Does anyone like to comment regarding this conditional use permit for Auto Image? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring the agenda item back to the commissioners for additional discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for the proposed auto sales business at the property address 4265 South 300 West, subject to the 8 conditions in their report.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to second that that
All right.
motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any other additional discussion? So, Zach, will you call
Yep.
for
Uh,
vote?
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Markham,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
and Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Motion passes, so thank you for having your business in Murray, and good luck to you. All right, we will go on to the public's item number 6.
Did you have a question? You don't have to stay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, you can. It'll
For
be
the car lock, I
fun.
wondered if he had to stay.
No, he said this is item number 4.
right. On their agenda, it's item number 6. So this is Shake Shack Fashion Place requesting a conditional use permit to be issued for construction of a restaurant on the property 6123 South State Street. And is the applicant for this item here? Yes, we'll bring you up in a little bit. And staff report, Zach will give us a staff report.
Great, thank you. So this is the location, the proposed location of Shake Shack. Look, it was working and now it doesn't want to work. That used to be the old Applebee's here. That has since been demolished as of last summer of 2018. Shake Shack is proposing to construct a new building there and in the future demolish, pretty quickly demolish the Taco Bell to the north of that as well. So this is in the CD zone, and just to touch on that a little bit, restaurants are an allowed use in the CD zone. However, Fashion Place has been operating under a conditional use permit since its inception in 1970 something. And so we treat these as an amendment to that conditional use permit. So that is why it's before you this evening. So from here forward, the site turns so the north is to the left, just for clarity and making these bigger. This is the proposed layout of the Shake Shack. The building is located where the Applebee's was. They're proposing 158 new parking stalls for Fashion Place. And that's kind of located here. They will also be removing some access points, which you can kind of see from here. These are existing access points here, and up here that will be closed off to help with flows throughout the site. They have provided a landscaping plan that meets our current ordinance. it exceeds our current ordinance. So the condition that is listed there for landscaping is to maintain the landscaping that they've provided. Here for your review also, this is the dining area right here with an order space and then all this back space for kitchen and restroom facilities. And then additionally, this is the 38-seat outdoor dining area. They have a variety of materials. That gray material on the bottom is a stucco type product. The top portion here is metal paneling. The green would be metal as well as the white. And this area is hardy board. So it's a mix of materials. We think it will be a nice addition to the Fashion Place area. I can't get you really good photos of a parking lot, but I sure did try. So you have 5 pictures of a parking lot and a Taco Bell. So there you have it. Again, I will go over the conditional uses. This again is a conditional use, which means that it is allowed. It's an allowed use subject to meeting conditions to mitigate any potential negative impacts. So this is not a yes or no vote for that, as long as we can meet those potential impacts. So with that, staff does recommend that we approve a conditional use permit for a new restaurant, Shake Shack, at 6123 South State, subject to the 8 conditions for you. Any questions?
Mr. Smallwood, on the motion, is it a motion to approve the amended conditional use permit, or just want to make sure we're right procedurally?
As I've been told, this will be, it's kind of an addendum, so you would treat it just as a normal conditional use. So it's kind of an addition onto the conditional use.
That's fine. I thank you for
Yeah,
clarifying.
no problem.
Other questions for staff? All right.
Well, I just got to ask the applicant. I want to know when it's open.
We're looking for free shakes. Everybody that can. All right.
It's really good.
Applicant, come forward, please, and state your name and your address for the record.
Ted Didus with McNeil Engineering, 8610 Sandy Parkway, representing the applicant, in this case, Brookfield Properties.
And have you had an opportunity to review the conditions for approval?
Yes.
And are you able to comply with those?
Yes.
Would you have any additional information to provide to the staff report?
I think the only thing just on, they do intend to demolish the Taco Bell. I'm not positive of when the lease is up. It's either August 1st or August 31st. The intent would be to start as soon as they can get, obviously conditioned upon your approval, as soon as they can get a building permit to initiate construction on the building pad, start the improvements around that, and then move towards demolition to the north as they phase out, hoping to get the stars to align, I guess, schedule-wise.
Okay. Anything else?
The one thing we are probably going to talk with staff about after looking at is, so ADA parking provided is based on a ratio of number of stalls provided. And in this case, we have a field out there that has about 158 stalls, which requires 6 or 7 ADA stalls, which seems a little excessive for that restaurant. To see if perhaps we could move maybe 3 of those stalls up closer to the mall, someplace that was maybe a little more practical. I don't know that I see 6 people using the stalls out there that might be more benefited closer to the mall. So that's just a.
And that's
Okay.
something will involve our building officials.
Yeah,
Sure.
we can address that.
So.
Any commissioners have questions?
Are there any parking for people like just come to pick up takeout food? Are there any of those
I'm
designated?
not aware that they plan to have any pickup.
So it'll just be ADA and then regular parking.
That's my understanding, yes.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I will open this agenda up for public comment. Does anyone like to make comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for additional discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow the proposed restaurant on the property located at 6123 South State Street, subject to conditions 1 through 8.
Mr. Chair,
Motion?
can I second that motion?
Yes, you may. So we have motion second. Is there any additional discussion?
I'll third it.
Zach, would you ask
Yep.
for
Uh,
a vote?
Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Markham,
Yes.
and Chairman Hacker.
Yes. All right. Thank you. We'll look forward to free shakes.
Hey, now.
All right.
No,
Maybe-
I will buy mine.
Same here.
It's well worth
We look
it.
forward to buying a hamburger and a shake.
All right.
I thought everyone was here for the Shake Shack.
We will move to the item number on your agenda is number 4. True North requesting a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a group instruction business at the property address 604 East Taylor Lane. And applicant here for that request. Thank you. We'll bring you up in a little bit. And Jim McNulty is going to give us a staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Hacker. I think based on the attendance tonight, this is the main event, so we'll get to the body of the report here. Specifically, the request is a conditional use permit to allow for group instruction. The applicant proposes to teach yoga and wellness classes to small groups in her home. This property, you can see from the overhead, is quite large in size in relation to the condos that it abuts, the Springtree condominiums in this case. You can see that access is currently gained from 5600 South via Springtree Lane to Taylor Lane. And so that provides access to the property in question, or the property we're discussing tonight. Springtree Lane provides access to the existing 104 condominium units within the Springtree condo development. This parcel is quite large. It's 1.6 acres in size. It's a single-family home. It's located between Springtree condominiums on the south and east and the Willows condominiums to the west. The Planning Commission, and this is something that's been discussed, and for the public, I believe a number of members of the public know this already, but that home sat on the original mother parcel, the original parcel or property for this entire piece, which to my understanding is just around 12 acres in size. That property, at some point in time, actually 1977, a large portion of the property was sold to Proswood to allow them to develop the Springtree condos. That subdivision allowed for a large piece of property, approximately 1.6 acres, to remain around the original home, and that's the home we're discussing tonight. The applicant is Julie Winder. She is proposing to use the existing home as her residence and would like to operate this business again as group instruction, which is identified as a conditional use in the RM10 zone, which is the zoning district for this home as well as all of the property in Springtree. So as far as the property, and let's go through that. Again, this is the zoning layer. You can see some of the open space around it, but then you see the RM10, which is what the property is zoned. This is an existing site plan of the property. You can see the existing house, the detached garage, and a greenhouse. You can see that it is a large property. If you look in this lower right-hand corner, you can see the drive access to the existing garage. However, the applicant is proposing that the clientele that would visit the facility to do the group instruction would utilize the drive access, the existing drive access that runs to the north and west of the property. And you can see that here with the arrows, and then you can see where they propose parking. Now, in that area that shows the parking that's been identified in the left-hand corner, there are approximately 14 spaces there. Also adjacent to the existing drive access where the detached garage is, there are 2 ADA spaces being proposed. So a total of 16 spaces are proposed for the site, showing that it can be parked to allow for the group instruction. This is a floor plan of the home. It's a Rambler-style home, approximately 3,400 square feet. You can see that there are areas where they would have class instruction and yoga classes. There's also a master suite and a second bedroom with bathrooms, kitchen, dining, things of that nature, as any home would have. These are some aerials, not aerials, but pictures of the property in question. And you can see that it's very wooded. You know, the access goes around the property. So the left picture is the north driveway heading west towards the proposed parking lot. The right picture is the lower parking area. You can see the path to the house. And then the bottom left, looking west from Taylor Lane at the property, where there is currently some construction going on. You can see from that vantage point as you take Taylor Lane, if you drive into the condominium project, you can see work occurring on the home and the location of the home with the fence. And then the bottom right, looking southeast at the house from the lower parking area, that would be the area where the 14 parking spaces would access the home. A few more pictures just for reference. The left picture looking west to the lower parking area from the house, the path is on the left. The right picture standing on the driveway looking out to Taylor Lane. And then bottom left, the north driveway from the lower parking area looking northeast. So we received from legal counsel rather early this morning, approximately 2 a.m., we received information submitted by Peter Harrison, legal counsel for the Springtree HOA. And so this was an objection to the conditional use permit. They have possession of the materials, the staff report, the findings, the recommendation, the conditions. And so they went through and they're listed their points of objection. And I'd like to go through those briefly. Number one, the scope of Ms. Winder's easement through Springtree condominiums is only for single-family residential access, not commercial access. The city will not weigh in on this or give an opinion. This is a civil matter between the Springtree HOA and the applicant. Number two, Ms. Winder has not been willing to agree to a formula for calculating her proportional use and maintenance share of the easement. Again, the city will not weigh in on this or give an opinion. This is a civil matter between the Springtree HOA and the applicant. Number three, Ms. Winder may have other legal access to her property that she should explore before burdening Springtree and its 104 homeowners. Again, the city will not weigh in on this or give an opinion. This is a civil matter between the Springtree HOA and the applicant. Number four, Ms. Winder's conditional use application does not disclose the true type, nature, and scope of her intended business. A complete conditional use permit application has been reviewed by city staff and found to be compliant with section 1756.060 of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance. And then some additional comments in the body of the letter. Number five, additionally, Ms. Winder has publicly stated that she has 4 children. However, based on the floor plan submitted to the city, there seems to be only 2 bedrooms available for her children, in addition to the master bedroom. This begs the question as to whether she even intends to reside and live at the property on Taylor Lane. The city will not weigh in on this or give an opinion. This is a civil matter between the Springtree HOA and the applicant. Number six, in addition, the applicant indicates that Ms. Winder's property, the application indicates that Ms. Winder's property is serviced by a septic system with approximately 100 additional adult visitors per week to this residence. It seems unlikely that the septic system was designed to handle the amount of potential waste. The Murray City Water and Sewer Division reviewed the application and recommended approval without condition. Number seven, finally, there are currently no conditions or discussion in the city's conditional use report of what kind of signage Ms. Winder may post at her property that would be visible from adjoining properties. The Murray City Sign Code Section 1748 allows for a home occupation to have a sign that may not exceed 2 square feet, so a very small sign associated with the businesses would be allowed. I want to go to what state code says, specifically Section 10, 9A 507, which I just pulled hot off the presses today. It specifically says, item 1A, a municipality may adopt a land use ordinance that includes conditional uses and provisions for conditional uses that require compliance with standards set forth in an applicable ordinance. Item 1B, A municipality may not impose a requirement or standard on a conditional use that conflicts with a provision of this chapter or other state or federal law. Item 2A(I). A land use authority shall approve a conditional use if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate the reasonable anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use in accordance with the applicable standards. Based on that analysis, the staff report, the material we've received, which we have deemed to be complete, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit allowing group instruction for yoga, holistic health, and nutrition within the single-family residence located at 604 East Taylor Lane in the RM10 zone, subject to the conditions as outlined in the report and available overhead. That's the end of my presentation. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff?
Any questions?
Not at this
Not
time.
at this time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Would the applicant come forward, please? Do you state your name and your address for the record?
Good evening. My name is Norm Daly. I am the general contractor on the job, as well as representing Ms. Winder regarding this application. I live at 2675 East Melanie Drive in Holiday, and have been intimately involved with the project since before it began about a year ago is when I first started. It was introduced to Julie and we started. I'm not going to try and rehearse.
Let me ask you first. Have you had an opportunity to read and review the conditions
Yes.
for approval?
I've read it in detail.
Are you able to comply with those?
Yes.
Okay.
When the property was purchased from the bank, it was in disrepair. The prior owner was in the process of remodeling and was killed in a ski accident. And so it was left empty for years, and then it was repossessed by the bank, and Ms. Winder purchased the property through the bank. After several attempts by other people, other developers, trying to add multifamily to the property at 1.6 acres, it was deemed, and I met with the Planning Commission and talked with them into the ordinances, and based on the current ordinances, it's a single-family residence, and that was Ms. Winder's intent from the get-go. She never looked at it as an investment property or something she wanted to develop. For her, it was one she looked to own as a residence. On taking possession of the property, it was in disrepair, but also the wooded area was non-maintained. There was a lot of undergrowth. The trees were stressed, and so should a fire have occurred on this property, it would have been a hazard not only to her property but to the surrounding properties, just because of its condition. If you were to visit the property as it now stands, much of that undergrowth has been cleaned up. It's in much better repair and is going to be much less of an issue. As many would attest, it has been a location for vagrants. Even during construction, Ms. Winder went to the property on a Sunday and found people sleeping in the house. And so it has been a nuisance to the area, and since obviously taking possession and doing the remodel, that we've not had any other issues. Also, Ms. Winder has already installed a privacy fence, removed one section of fencing that was falling down, removed it, replaced it, and she's putting security gates on the property. So the attempt, well, not the efforts have been made to secure the property, not only for Ms. Winder's use, but also for the residents of Springtree. Well, the application was made with full understanding what the requirements were. It was read in detail, and the information that was supplied and provided to the City Council or to the Planning Commission is in full compliance, as is indicated by the staff report, with the recommendation from all the departments as well as staff. So I won't belabor that. And the one issue that I would address is there have been allegations made that there has been no effort to reach an agreement. There have been efforts, and we've just not come to an accord yet with the Springtree HOA. I'm here to tell you that the desire is to work something out and to come to a reasonable resolution of the issues. So that's all I have to say, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer more of the technical questions. If there are operational questions you would have, then Ms. Winder is available to respond to those questions.
Thank you. Commissioners?
So, just one question. So Ms. Winder is, I know one of the things that we read in the letter, and one of the concerns again was, just making sure that this will be her residence. So Ms. Winder will be living at this location, correct?
Yes.
Not just a part-time or, just this will be her primary residence.
It will be the primary residence.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had one question on the floor plan I was looking at. Mine didn't have the rooms delineated very well. I think it was probably just the copy that I got. But I was trying to figure out the bedrooms. I see which one would be the master, but then can you tell me which ones would be?
There are 2 bedrooms with bathrooms attached.
Okay. All right, her copy has it on.
All right.
Okay, so it will be 3 bedrooms.
2. I think there are 2 designated
Yeah, you can see
bedrooms on the plan.
You can see them.
Okay, so that other one that doesn't say anything is just a spare room.
It's a gathering room.
Okay.
It's family,
Gotcha.
living room, family space, whatever you want to call it.
And just to add to that line of thought, there's probably more living space in the basement. The basement
There is no
especially.
basement.
Oh, there's
There-
stairs.
Well, we have a utility room in the basement, which is probably 20 by 40, if that, is simply where the mechanical, it's on a pump, it's on a well. So we have the well house, the well pump, there are the heating and air condition, or the heating units, electrical. So it's basically a utility facility.
All right.
Okay.
Other questions for the applicant?
Not right now.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So before I open this up to public comment, I know this is a highly charged item, and we pride ourselves at decorum of our meetings. So I'd read you a couple items here. The Murray City Land Ordinance, Section 17.116.030 allows for group instruction in single-family dwellings in the RM10 zone subject conditional use permit approval. So the Planning Commission's task this evening is with taking public comment and reviewing the proposal, the conditions, and approval to determine if a project impacts have been appropriately mitigated. So with that, again, I know it's highly charged. I'd ask that you respect all of the people in the room and refrain from disrupting that decorum. So with that, I would open the meeting for public comment, and if you'd have public comment, please come forward, state your name, your address for the record, and again, if you have like to make personal comment, would give you 3 minutes, and for group comment, 5 minutes, and if it's a repetitious comment from one person to another, I'd ask that you'd refrain from that as well. So, thank you.
My name's Peter Harrison. I'm the attorney for the association. So you as the commissioners are tasked with looking at how you can mitigate the impact via some sort of reasonable conditions, and that's problematic in this instance. And I know that we've got this display up here of that the city will not weigh in or give an opinion on civil matters. But the problem is that when you approve a conditional use permit for the applicant in this manner, you are impacting us civilly, because right now the easement between the two parties is purely residential in nature. It doesn't contemplate commercial use. And so there's no way that you can mitigate those damages to us. You're fundamentally changing the nature of a contract that we have, that the association has between the landowner. As a third party, you're coming in and you're changing that. So you're now creating a civil issue for us. One, Two, the conditional, the preliminary approval of this conditional use permit is premised on the idea that there is some sort of a payment scheme in place between the two parties. There isn't. The applicant has refused to pay her proportionate share of her use of the easement, and Mr. Dolly just admitted that there was nothing in place. And so, littered throughout the recommendation that this be approved is it's based on the faulty premise that we have some agreement in place when we don't. And the applicant has refused to engage in any reasonable discussion based on that. So essentially, approval of this is telling us, all right, we're going to have to sue her because she has been unwilling to come forward, and now the impact is going to be grossly disproportionate. The community, the association, is mainly inhabited with retirees, and so the numbers that are based in the report that you received don't accurately reflect the amount of use on that easement, particularly if she has 12 people every day that are going in and out of there. So we don't have an agreement in place right now, and based on those numbers, it's unlikely that we will get an agreement in place because, as I said, the applicant has been completely unwilling to do that. So you're tasked with, as long as you can mitigate this in some sort of a reasonable manner, then you can approve the conditional use permit. But what I'm telling you is it can't be done. You can't fundamentally change the nature of our contractual relationship and then say, well, it's been appropriately mitigated. So you have the rest of everything that I would say in written form, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, I'll cede my time.
Any questions?
I just didn't get his address for the record.
Oh, my address is 1043 South Douglas Street in Salt Lake.
Thank you.
All right.
Questions of the?
No, we'll write them down and address a lot of these.
Yeah, we'll
You know,
address them
at the end.
all the public comment.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peter Guyon. I'm an owner of one of the condominium units at Spring Tree, and I'm a lawyer as well. And I say yay to Peter Harrison's comments, and I'd like to add to those. But I'm representing myself.
Can you give us your actual address, please?
I sure will. 6562 South, 1710 East, Salt Lake, 84121. I don't live in the unit, I own it. I think we're all missing something that's very fundamental here. And let me just, to make this point, let me just say that the conditional use permit application has to do with number 68115 of your local ordinance, which says the conditional use is described as, quote, I'm quoting, group educational home, parens, preschool, close quote, close parens. And let me emphasize preschool. Now, to me, I don't know about you, but to me, preschool indicates that the conditional use permit is for preschool children in a group educational home as a preschool. This is not a preschool. The applicant's stated purpose is to enhance the health and well-being of my clients, not my students, not my preschool students, not anything like that has to do with any educational thing. She's tried to describe her conditional use application as an application for education, and she's trying to do that. There's a metaphor that I hear used all the time in the legal business, and that is you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And this is a conditional use that's allowed under here for group educational home preschool. That is not what this application is asking for. And so my argument is that the board does not have the authority to grant this even if it wanted to, because it's obviously not consistent with the conditional use permit that's authorized under 6815. I'd just like to point out a couple of other things to support what I've already said, and that is the applicant's asking for a home business license, not a home school license. The activities she indicates are yoga classes, general
10
health.
seconds, sir. You have
Pardon me?
10 seconds, sir.
Sure.
10 seconds is left of your time,
Oh,
of your 3 minutes.
okay. All right, well,
He didn't say that.
I guess I don't have anything more to say then. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
He did not say that.
Yeah.
He didn't say that when he came up, so we have to just limit him to the 3, sorry.
Well, I've said what I wanted to say anyway. so-
If do you have additional comments to make for your group that you're representing?
Well, yeah, I have a few other comments I could make. If I, just give me a few minutes.
Okay, we can give you the 2 more minutes.
All right, I won't take long. I'd just like to point out, I thought this was very interesting in your permitted uses, the list of permitted uses. This is full of school things, educational things, that kind of a thing. This 6815 conditional use permit is preceded by kindergarten schools, elementary schools, junior high schools, senior high schools, and followed by denominational and sectarian schools, schools for disabled, residential facilities for disabled. These are consistent with the idea that this is a preschool. This is what's authorized under the conditional use permit, and nothing else. Not a business. It's a school. That's what it's been. And this isn't what is being asked for. So I would simply say, don't do it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pam Williams, and I've been a homeowner at Spring Tree since 1991.
Your address, please?
I'm 627 East Spring Tree Lane, number H, Murray, 84107. So, all that time, not only have I lived there, but I've played there. So, recently, of course, my play got a little less rambunctious, but I still ride my bike. It's electric now, and I still walk every day on my own 2 feet. And the roads in Spring Tree are not that wide. There's only sidewalk. They took pictures of the good sections where there's sidewalk, but there's not sidewalk in the entire community for most of it. So you're walking on the road. So this adds a whole bunch of people running in and out that's supposed to be going 10 miles an hour that are late for their classes of yoga. I also take yoga, but I'm not going to take it there. A whole lot of people on the roads. In the summertime, the retirees, the grandparents, like the pool for the grandchildren to come. So they're skipping along those roads too. So there's more people coming in, running over the little kids. And we can do that by ourselves. Anyway, so I just want you to think about the people that play in Spring Tree as opposed to those that live in Spring Tree, because we're all human beings. And we have to have a little space. And we like Spring Tree for its little space. Besides that, there is another entrance that is, and I don't know, I didn't look it up, I could have, place for, what is it? 560 East was the original road that they were supposed to enter that property on. There are neighbors off to the west of our building 12 that have put junk and closed up that roadway, but there is a roadway into, not the roadway that we see now, that was there when I first moved in. It hadn't totally been covered up, and it is the roadway into that property. So it's a full street, maintained by Murray City. So there's also one other thing I've forgotten that I wanted to bring up. Do you remember from my email? Yes, I know. Okay, so anyway, like I say, Spring Tree is a place we also play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Stephanie Hofflane, address 617 Taylor Lane. So I'm in building 12. And I did appreciate the pictures, and I like the comment that, yeah, the pictures don't tell the story. The entrance that she proposes into the home literally is my driveway. And those of us that live in building 12, if someone's coming in and someone's going out, we have to pause and move over to try to scoot around each other. And now, especially with the fence up there, you know, it's a little close. So there were no pictures of that portion that is really quite blocked off. So that's one huge concern, along with what's been, you know, saying that this is private property and have all kinds of people coming in and out all day long that we don't know. In fact, all week long, especially on weekends when it's our chance, you know, finally be home and rest ourselves. That's a little concerning. And it's nothing to do with not being neighborly and really even having a business. But it was, as was just stated, the entrance is the huge problem. To have all of those people, all those cars on roads that we have to maintain in areas that we walk, in places where we have to get past each other and drive ourselves, that is quite a large issue. So if you haven't taken a look at that piece, yeah, she's got plenty of land to do whatever she wants. It's wonderful. But encroaching on our little piece is the problem that I see. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Mike Skorheim. I live at 5516 South Spring Tree Lane in Building 9, Unit B in Murray. Right here.
Which, bottom right or?
Bottom right.
Bottom right.
So my unit is in most of the pictures that show the building.
Bottom left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, you're going to hear tonight a lot of stories about concern of traffic and that sort of thing. So I'll let everybody kind of say their piece. But I have a question about how the meeting began with her. Are you her lawyer or just developer? Okay.
Address us.
I'm sorry, developer?
He needs to address us.
We can
So-
bring him back up later.
So you're the one making
Questions can be addressed
You
to
can
the
have that
dais,
sidebar later.
please.
So he's the general contractor for the applicant.
I just wonder where he got all of his information, if he has backup for the things he said were a problem with that property. I mean, I get it generally, yeah, if nobody's in it, it's run down. That's typical. My condo value went up about $90,000 in the last 3 years when that property was empty. So I don't think the issue is value and upkeep that's going to make this a better place to live. I think what we need to make sure of is that that if she gets this, that those are not strict enough conditions. One is it doesn't even mention that she owns the house. Is that implicit in your thing, or does it need to be spelled out? So if she doesn't live in the house, it doesn't show on there.
We'll have staff address that.
Okay, and the times that she comes in and out. Any time of the day, evening.
It's her house.
I mean, how does that work? Do we have any way to control the traffic going through there? Are those going to be spelled out if she gets this? There's a lot of questions about this. And maybe we should have a recess to talk more about this and find out more impact. That's what I'm concerned about. I live in the corner, yeah, I don't want more traffic. Neither does anybody. But if this thing happens, we want to be good neighbors, and we would like her to understand our concerns. And I think if it happens, we need many, many more restrictions and guidelines than this offers. It's very vague for those of us who live there and want a nice, quiet place to continue to live and retire.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
My name is Carol Klein. I've had a cold, I'm sorry. I live at 617 East Taylor Lane, Building 12, Unit A. I've lived at Spring Tree for about approximately 18 years. I moved there because I wanted the wooded area, the quietness, the birds, and my building, Building 12, is one of two buildings that are the closest to the property, the Winder property. In the last year, I've observed many, many types of equipment, parking in our parking spaces, dump trucks going through with dirt. I've seen the asphalt filthy, and until we brought that to their attention, the roads weren't cleaned up. We have put off putting, as a newly elected vice chair of the board, we put up, excuse me, I've lost my train of thought, but what I would like to say is that I care about this community very much. I've been on the board for maybe 2 years. I'm on the neighborhood watch. I've seen crime increase through our area, and it seems to have gotten worse in the last year. I humbly ask that you consider all our concerns and look at all the different issues that we bring up. Thank you.
Thank you.
She said she was letting that other guy speak for her.
It's okay. It's okay.
Can you please state your name and your address for the record?
Sherry Richardson, 611 East Taylor Lane, number F. I'm an owner, but my property is rented by a tenant. There's a lot being said. Basically, my point of view is this is a neighborhood, homes, community, and you want to plop a business in the middle of us. These are private roads. We have to maintain them. We've had heavy equipment coming in. We're having trouble getting the money to maintain them as it is. With all this extra construction going on, different cars coming in for whatever her business is, it's not home to us anymore. My tenant who lives there would not be happy. It's the closest building as well to all of this. He loves being able to sit on his deck and look out at the wildlife and the peacefulness and the quietness with whatever, some business being plopped down in the middle of that with all these people coming and going. It's just not, it doesn't make sense. Because I'm thinking, if you had a home like that and you plopped this business right next to you, I don't think you'd like it either. So I was just thinking maybe we could have a raise of hands of everybody who's against this.
No, that's not
No,
appropriate.
that's not your job, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's what we're here for. We're against it.
We're getting
Thank you
that
for
heard.
We
speaking
have
out.
that loud and
It needs to
clear.
be- It's not what we all signed up for in our little group and what we pay for to maintain the roads, the snow removal, everything else. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is Dick Simper. I live at 5570 South Marshwood Lane. That's Building 3, Unit A. And I've got just two quick points, which have been covered, but I'd like to reinforce them. Number one, as a resident, longtime resident of Springtree, I am very, very happy that Miss Winder has taken that property and is making it pretty, because it was a disaster. You know, the overgrown, A lot of transients hanging out in there, drug dealers. We've found, as part of the neighborhood watch, we've found drug paraphernalia in and around the property. So I'm really happy that somebody is taking care of it. But as a resident, I am totally opposed to having any kind of business out of that property that is going to bring strangers into the community. We have enough strangers driving through day and night as it is. We don't need any more. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dora Whittaker, and I live 5482 South Springtree Lane, Unit E. And I agree with Dick that the property that she has worked on is beautiful. I personally taught aerobics, fitness training for 30 plus years, and had to lease a business facility to hold all my classes, and that worked great in the business setting, but not in a private residential facility. Because when there is a demand, you're going to get more classes, more people. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
All right. Thank you very much.
My name is Nancy Larsen. I live at 5520 South Springtree Lane, Unit F. I was the last person to buy one of the original units at Springtree, so I have lived there for 40 years. It's a place that I dearly love. And we have signs now at the entrance to it that this is a private property. We don't want people coming in and kind of looking around and see if they want to invade our homes. When Springtree was first built, it did not have any underground parking. And people would drive by and go, "Oh, look it! Underneath here, there are no cars. This will be a good time to pay some of these units a visit." And therefore, were broken into. So people started putting garages in the carports. We want this to be a safe environment. We want it so that there are not people who are not visitors to us coming in all the time. This is, like they said, a lot of the people are retired, and we want it to be a safe community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Karen Warren, and I live at 5570 South Marshwood Lane, Building 3, Unit B. And I concur with what everyone else has been saying. I am not in favor of this, so I won't go through any of that. But I do have a question and a concern, which is also, what is to keep her from adding more classes than what are proposed now? Once she gets this conditional use permit and she begins what she's proposing, what is to stop her from adding many more classes, which is going to add a lot more traffic and a lot more people coming in and out? Thanks.
Thank you. We'll answer that as we get into the process here.
Number 2.
My name is Norma Fury. I live in Building 1, 600 East Marshwood Lane. I have a question why this application for a conditional use permit has come up now. The board met with the mayor and I believe a member of the planning commission not too many weeks ago. And I sat next to the mayor and he spoke and said, Mrs. Winder could not apply for a conditional use for a business until she lives on the property. He said that loud and clear. So why has this come up now? She doesn't live there now. And I don't understand why this has come up. At first, when she bought the property, it was for her and her 4 children. No mention was ever made of a health center, never, until we did have a meeting with her and her contractor. And at the end of the meeting, when we were almost all ready to go home, one of our board members asked her what she did to make a living. She said, "I'm a teacher." The board member said, "Where do you teach?" She said, "In my home." Well, you could have heard a pin drop. Everybody was quiet. So I want to know why we are having this meeting when she doesn't live there, and the mayor said she has to live there before she applies for a conditional use of any kind. And also, I would like to know why she cannot come in from 5400 South and not disturb more than 2 or 3 families. Where she comes in from 5600, she comes past buildings, she comes past our swimming pool, and then she goes down towards her property. But instead of coming into 5400 South, she wants to come and disturb the people who live in Springtree. I've lived there 22 years, and I'm telling you, these dump trucks, 14-wheel dump trucks, going on our streets that are private, and these streets were never built to withstand the travel of these dump trucks and big, heavy, earth-moving equipment brought in on trailers on our streets. And I think it's wrong. We have open spaces. We have a nice, quiet, tranquil neighborhood. A lot of people retired. I'm retired.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Dwayne Baird. My address is 12241 South, 1740 West in Riverton. I own a unit in the building that you see on the lower left corner of your screen there in Building 9. The unit is Unit H in that building. And so I'm here to talk not only about the ingress and the egress there, but running through the entire complex of Springtree, but the fact that there is an easement, or has been an easement, going north out of that property where there is a gate through a fence that goes out onto 560 East, and that street goes north to 5400 South. And that has been used in the past. It was used by the Taylor family when they lived there. I've lived on this property, the current property, for 22 years, or I've had that place for 22 years. I lived in Springtree from 1991 to 1994, and then moved away for a couple of years and moved back. However, I would just suggest that as a planning commission, you may want to look at the other easement that only impacts 6 residents along that street of 560 East as it goes north to 5400 South. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Please.
Hi, my name is Jeff Morganegg. I am sitting chair as a whopping 2 weeks. So I took over for Norma.
Address?
637 East Springtree Lane. It's Unit 13. So in addition to the concerns presented by our legal, and as a newly sitting chair of all of 2 weeks, I have not had enough time period. Time to find out where negotiations fell off. Time to find out why negotiations fell off. And time to start new negotiations. Basically, not enough time to wrap my arms around this whole situation. So I cannot effectively represent my owners as chairman without more time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else like to make comment this evening regarding this agenda item?
My name's Tim Butler. I live at 592 East Marshwood Lane, Unit G. I'm a fairly new resident at Spring Tree. I've been aware of it for many, many years. Had friends who lived there and loved that community, and purchased my unit almost 2 years ago and have very much enjoyed living there. I bought it for the ambiance, the peace and tranquility. I'm also preparing to retire in a year or two and bought it with my retirement in mind. It's interesting to note, as we think about the other applications for these provisional use permits, granting none of them to these other entities involve changing the fundamental nature of the community. This one, I think, does that. It's zoned for residential. If I had known that when I bought my property almost 2 years ago that there was going to be a commercial enterprise there with all the problems that that brings with increased traffic and disruption, the road issues, and to me, security issues. I lived in another condominium, a townhouse condominium community. I was burglarized 3 times. One of the things I liked about Spring Tree is at least the feeling of security. That's going to be compromised when you put a commercial entity right at our doorstep and have all this additional public traffic going in and out every day. And so I strongly oppose the granting of this access. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name's Virginia Uliberry. I am my address is 2736 East Wren Road in Holiday. I'm here because I'm a friend of Julie's, and I fully support her vision in creating a healing place for people to be able to go and do yoga, practice healing methods of meditation, other things that are healing activities. Julie's trying to create a healing space to help people to heal and develop healthy habits for continued well-being. She's not trying to do anything negative in this place. She's trying to help people. The property is not being subdivided. It's not going to be turned into something that is going to greatly impact people for years to come. I haven't looked into this for sure, but from what I understand, if there is access from 5400, it could potentially be subdivided. That's not what Julie's trying to do, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on saying that, but that's the little research that I've done. She's cleaning it up. She's not bringing crime. She's trying to clean the place up and create a beautiful place for everybody who lives around there, as well as for herself. The pond, when I went to visit the property a few years ago when they had the algae bloom down in Utah County, that from what I understand, the algae bloom had traveled and ended up in the pond. I'm sure with Julie being there, this will not happen again. It will be clean, it will be beautiful, it will encourage additional wildlife, additional birds, additional dragonflies to come. My question is, what would they like to see happen with the property? What's the future vision for the property? Probably single-family residential, but is that likely to happen if there is access granted from 5400 South? And if there is access granted, how would people feel about it then from 5400? What's going to happen with it then if Julie isn't able to acquire the conditional use permit that she's seeking. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
My name is Steve Breitling. My address is 6153 Carriage Park Circle. I own Unit 13D in Springtree since 1983. You know, it was mentioned that maybe she shouldn't have brought this up until she was living there. I think it's quite unfortunate that maybe she didn't bring this up before she bought the property, to see if that was even going to be a possibility and work through the issues in advance of even considering purchasing the property. The question was just asked, what will happen to the property, or what would we like to see? Basically what it's always been, a single family home, and used as such. That's what the intent was with the development when it was built and the property was sold, and so we'd like to see that honored and maintained. Her fence, as you look at the picture here, there's no setback. It's right to the road. I mean, how imposing does that feel? It's very imposing. If you go on site and try to go there, not only are the streets narrow, but it even feels more narrow, and you have the fence right on that road. So I don't think a lot of care, a lot of consideration was made. Even that decision, why not set back if you want a fence? You know, do a normal setback for a fence along a main road. So I think that added traffic, allowing this, and what may happen in the future is going to keep causing more and more imposing conditions for this community. And like it's already been stated, it is definitely going to change the nature of that community as it's been. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Elaine Larsen. I am 96 years old, and I have lived in Springtree for 26 years. We have said much about our roads. We have said much about the quietness. We have said much about the amenities that we have in our condos. My family takes good care of me, but I don't want to go to live with them. I want to live by myself, and I can take care of myself. We have many, many widows. We have widowers. We have school teachers. We have single men who live in our vicinity. Every evening when I go to have my dinner, I lock myself in, and I know very well that I'm safe there. I am an old person. I don't move very fast, but I do not want to have a lot of people coming in that will be coming and using our roads and robbing us of the peace and serenity and the quietness. There is a tendency within the nation that everything is for the next generation. I am not of the of that past generation. My generation is still strong. We are still useful. We still have desires. And we are good people, and we are worthy, and we should qualify to have the desires of our hearts. And if we don't want to have the businesses coming into our territory, we have a right to speak up. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Last opportunity. Last call. All right, seeing no other desire for public comment. 3, 2, 1.
You gave lots of chances.
I'll close public comment. All right, we'll bring it back up here to, I think, to staff to start to address the questions that we heard from you.
Okay, let me go, Commissioner Hacker, I'm going to go through what I recollect, and then if there's more, please feel free to add to this. We did get a comment from an individual, I don't have everybody's names, but it was the comment, an attorney, doesn't live in the area, but the owner, he talks about the CUP allowing for group instruction, only for preschools or uses of that nature. Actually, 6815, which is the use number, within section 17.116.030 under conditional uses, has 2 categories. And our standard land use matrix has many categories for different land uses and under different numbers. We have a category that says group education home preschool in single-family dwellings, only in which at least 7 but not more than 12 children will be receiving instruction at a given time. Below that, we have group instruction in a single-family dwelling, only in which at least 9 but not more than 12 people will be receiving instruction. That's what this qualifies for, group instruction under that conditional use category. There are 2 different sets of 2 different criteria, 2 different categories there. The other one I got is, what about adding more conditions and restrictions? And, this hasn't been looked at very closely, and time spelled out and things of that nature. The applicant has indicated in the application that they're going to have 8 sessions a week. They're not allowed to exceed more than up to 12 people, between 9 and 12 people in each group. And that's, and she's shown times in late morning and afternoons and a few evenings a week. Certainly, the applicant or the owner has freedoms and rights just as we all enjoy, just as all the owners in Springtree enjoy. We don't keep track of our residents when they come and go. We are aware of quiet hours and quiet times throughout the city. In most occurrences, that is related to construction. No loud activity after 10 p.m. at night or before 7 a.m. in the morning. But it's not something that we're concerned with here with what she is proposing to do.
Jim, right there within that, I feel like you're addressing another question that was asked about the ability of this applicant to grow, the business to grow.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's given us her what she's proposing. And she's proposing 8 sessions a week with up to 12 students, which is allowed, somewhere between 9 and 12. That's what we've been given.
And you just stated this business license will allow 9 through 12, nothing greater.
Correct, but that's 9 to 12 people. 8 sessions a week is what was given to us.
Jim, that's condition number 3.
Yeah.
And so we have mitigated that. It says no more than 12 students, 1 per day Monday through Thursday, and 2 per day Friday to Saturday. So
Correct.
Even if she gets super successful, this permit does not allow her to add any more classes according to this condition.
That is correct.
So that is, she can max this out, but she cannot add more than 1 class per day, Monday through Thursday, 12 students per class. under
Correct.
this condition.
That is correct. That is correct.
And we see this all the time in home businesses. They're all over Murray, and I think you would be surprised at how many home businesses there are that offer group instructions,
Right.
dance, singing lessons, theater, various number of things, preschools, and these conditions are in every one of them. And the
that-
purpose is to mitigate them.
That is correct. And through the business license process, that's also another process through our business license coordinator that will regulate this and puts limitations on it, and that will have to be renewed yearly. If it is found that the applicant is out of compliance and not following the conditional use permit, that's something that we would have to take a task with and bring back to the Planning Commission if there are legitimate concerns that they've exceeded what they may be approved to in this particular case. We had another question or another comment about she doesn't live there now. I met with the mayor. The mayor said that she can't do it if she's not living there. Why is she doing this now? The applicant has a right to submit the conditional use permit application and go through a process. She has indicated to us that she will reside in this home. It will be her primary dwelling. She will not be allowed to operate the conditional use that allows for this group instruction until she's residing in the residence. That's been clear from the get-go. There is work going on. They do have a permit. They're doing residential remodel work that's been permitted through the building department. But until she's occupying the residence, that's when we anticipate that the group instruction would start once she is residing there.
So just so that I understand, you can apply to get the conditional use permit, but it wouldn't go into effect until she's residing in the residence.
That's correct.
That's why we can look at this application,
Right.
but it wouldn't be
Right.
held to any standards until she's living there and open.
Right, and we see that with a lot of applications that we review throughout the city, especially residential subdivisions. I mean,
Hold
they
your
come to
questions,
us.
please.
They come to us 6 to 12 months before they're
There's no
ready to record a
questions.
plat. They're just planning for when
Right.
they can do the development or do the project.
Great, thank you.
And Jim, I guess a question I had is you said that this this remodel has gone through the review with the city. At any time of that remodel, was there discussion of the ingress and egress on the road and the possibility of using that other 560 east entrance to try to mitigate that impact on the remodel?
I don't have an answer to that,
Okay.
Commissioner Woodbury. I do not know that.
The-
but
Mr. Daly, he can address that later.
Yeah, we can have the
Yeah.
applicant
Yeah.
come up.
We'll let the applicant address that, but
Certainly.
that's one of the items that
Yeah.
we've been directed by our legal counsel, the city attorney, not to address tonight.
Okay,
Thank you.
Was the remodel.
the egress.
The remodel we can, but the access,
other
the access. issue.
Right. My question was, that stuff is normally looked at in the remodel, typically, right? When someone comes in to apply for a remodel or a construction project, the city, in improving that remodel, looks at all the different facets of that remodel and the impact.
Correct.
Right. That was what I was asking.
Correct.
Jim, can I
Okay.
address that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just when it's an interior remodel like that, it usually does not go through a site evaluation. That becomes more an issue when there's a new
If they're
home being-
redeveloping
Yeah,
the
if they're
property or
tearing the
something.
home down and rebuilding
Okay.
it, then we would look at access issues. But when they are doing purely internal work, we typically don't. We do obtain a site plan for that, but it's not something that we traditionally review.
And maybe, I guess that's a question for Mr. Daly when he comes up,
Yeah.
because, again, Jim, and I'm trying to balance of addressing what we can and what we can't, because I want to make sure I understand that. But, obviously, if there's a lot of equipment coming through there for an internal remodel, I mean, that it doesn't sound like that's what the residents have experienced. So I want to understand. I'll ask the applicant when he comes up.
Correct.
So.
Okay.
Jim,
Thank
could you, for my benefit and the audience, could you address the concern with, we've had a lot of comments stating that these are private roads, it's a private community, they do not want, any more traffic and so forth in that, and just address that subject.
Please don't speak out.
I am
No comment.
addressing the
Yeah.
gentleman at the podium.
Yes, it is a private street system. It's existed for quite some time. This home does have access to utilize that point of ingress and egress. That was put in place in 1977 when the property was subdivided. In a court of law, that easement or right would be prescriptive by right. It has existed for more than 40 years, and they have every right to use it. Now, this deal that their attorney and the HOA representative have discussed, that's not something the city is a party to. We can encourage the applicant, and we address that in the conditions. We encourage
number 5.
that they go and meet with the HOA if they're willing to do that, but we cannot make them do that. The other thing is we have done an analysis with our city engineer, taking a look at the traffic and the impacts. Based on the number of cars coming and going, based on the 8 sessions a week, if we have 12 people, we have 12 coming to the site, right? And then 12 leaving the site. That's 24 total trips. The impact is roughly 5%. 5% increase to the overall traffic within the Springtree condominium project. Now, the state of their roads, there might be some issues where they need a slurry seal. They might need some potholes fixed, things of that nature. That's very common. But those are private roads that don't, currently meet a public standard, and the HOA is over those. That's very common. And, we've got people, I hear all kinds of conversations going on, and everybody has their opinion, but that's our position as a city.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. McNulty?
Yep.
The 18 neighbors who commented, approximately 11 had questions about traffic, which you addressed, and approximately 3 or 4 had security concerns. Is there something we can say about the security issues?
Well, I think the clientele that the applicant is proposing to bring to the site is by invitation. People that the applicant knows or is affiliated with. But the other thing is we have a very active police force. We have an officer with us here tonight. If there is a concern from the residents that they're concerned that something's going on that doesn't seem in line, they're welcome to call the police. And our police force is great, and they'll run out there and take care of business. That's how I would direct them. And I'm sure the HOA kind of has a neighborhood watch type of program. But if there are concerns, we need to make sure they're legitimate concerns, not, well, I saw one more car. If we get legitimate concerns, those are things that we'll take under consideration.
So from this application, we don't have any reason to believe that would be a security risk?
Not at this time.
But I mean, that's really, we discussed this a lot. I mean, Phil and I have been on the commission now for almost 7 years. We've had a lot of these home occupation businesses coming in, and the city, obviously we can't offer any sort of guarantee of who decides to take a class. I mean, someone could sign up to take a piano class or a dance class that's taught in a neighborhood. That's part of life. Like, we as a city allow those home businesses, and we certainly can't require that business to do a background check on anyone who wants to do it. That's up to them. That's a matter on their business. We as a city can't say, you guys have to require that. This came up a few months ago in an applicant when they were asking us to impose a condition to background check the people that frequented it. And that's not something we can do. And so I think it's certainly the yoga, I guess stereotyping and saying traditional clientele would say they're probably not, the most rough group. But we have no guarantee, and the residents have no guarantee. And so certainly those are concerns, but that's not stuff that we as a city can address the clientele for that business. We can address the conditional use permit. We can address to make sure that it complies with Utah State Code, that we put any conditions in here to mitigate any impact, but we can't really address, unless I'm out of line, Jim, but we've gone through this before and that's been the case.
Right. That is correct. And the conditional use is approved based on the conditions that the Planning Commission sees that will mitigate the impacts. And that's what we can impose on the applicant.
Mr. McNulty, can I ask you 2 other questions? This area is zoned RM10, which means it's zoned for high, medium density, so we could build another condo there. Somebody else could come in and build another more than 12 units of condo possibly. We'd have to look at logistics.
Well, we'd
but-
have to look at it, but based on the zone.
Oh, way to go, Jim.
Gosh.
See, and he works here. You guys all did great with the microphone. So,
Yeah.
Jim uses this all the time, and
Hello. All right.
Yep, there you go. You're good.
I'll just hold it.
Definitely on.
mic drop. Thanks, Jim.
Accident.
So,
That is correct. The applicant could potentially look at developing the property if access could be gained and subdividing it. There could be single-family homes put there. There could be multifamily homes put there. But it would require a review process. And I don't know what that density would be, but that is something that they would have a right to apply for potentially developing the site.
And some analogy, I'm making assumptions, but I'm kind of assuming that this is a lower traffic pattern than could occur.
I believe that to be correct.
And then my second
Average daily trips show us approximately 10 for a single family home, 9.5 to 10 average daily trips.
I have one other question. When this property was up for sale, it was available to, were there any restrictions on who could have purchased the property?
No, I mean, it was up for sale for quite some time, and it was not purchased until, I don't know the exact date, the last 10 or 12 months. I believe that's when it was purchased or put under contract, but it was available for quite some time.
So it could have been made into something different by a different buyer.
Sure, the HOA could have even purchased it if they chose to do so.
Thank you.
And we've had that happen in other projects in the city.
It takes money, but.
Yeah. Thank you.
We need to have the applicant come
Right.
up.
Yeah.
So, Commissioners,
Maybe try to fix this.
do we answer all of our questions from staff that
I think so for right now.
I mean, I think we
the
addressed.
comment brought up?
We can always drag them back.
Yeah, but I think we addressed most of them. I'm a little concerned about having Jim come up again because we only have one microphone. Jim may have to answer from sitting down. Melinda, can you help him with the microphone next time?
I think we got it.
So,
This happened at a council meeting last month.
And I just to refresh my memory, there is an easement agreement in place on that property,
yes.
a shared easement agreement.
So when the plat was recorded in 1977, there was an agreement placed on the plat just for a general easement.
Melinda, could you tell the audience who you are?
I'm Melinda Greenwood, the Community and Economic Development Director for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, are we going to bring the applicant back up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
So I have a few
Yes.
questions for them as well.
After we fix the microphone.
Okay. I'm glad Zach could
You're
fix
playing
it.
with fire, Zach. Don't touch it.
No, Zach's fine. He's good with technology. Jim,
All right, we'll bring applicant back up and perhaps answer a few more of our questions.
Don't touch the mic.
Yeah. Yes, my question is just how much detail do you really want to get into?
Well, I think, I know we have a few questions. So one of the questions that I have, and Jim may need to comment, or Melinda or Zach on this, if I recall correctly, you indicated that there is no agreement in place with the HOA currently with the applicant, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
May I respond to that, or?
Well, the reason, yeah, possibly. I mean, the reason I'm asking is...
That is correct. There is no agreement.
Because the staff indicated, and so that's why it's a question for Jim and Melinda. It says the applicant has indicated that she has agreed with Springtree COA to contribute for ongoing road maintenance in recognition that her proposed use has had and will have an impact on the road condition. And so maybe staff can comment on that, but that's what was in our packet. And then in another section, that was on page 3, and then another on page 5 says the applicant has agreed to participate with the COA in paying for the maintenance of the private road. So that's, I guess, a question.
And I'll try to address this based off of conversations with Jared, Jared Hall, who compiled the staff report.
Then left town.
Exactly, and then left town. So from what I understand, and then from conversations with the applicant as well, is that there was a proposal for the road to be rebuilt, and that it was going to inflict like a levy on the property owners. So each one would have to pay for a share of the road for a one-time fee. And then, so what Jared had understood is that she had made an agreement or made an arrangement to pay 2 shares of that. I'm sorry? Or an offer to pay 2 shares of that. And that's what we had been under assumption at that time. And again, that is a civil issue, and it's, yeah.
I agree. I was just asking, trying to understand, and making sure that, as a planning commission, I think it's our responsibility to make sure we understand, what the representative of the applicant says, as well as what we are told in our packets, and understanding all the different angles. So I just wanted to clarify.
And that's what we were going with, the assumption. That's what I know from Jared that he's told me.
Right, and I'm not saying this to say that there's an agreement in place and that they have to do that. We've already addressed that in the letter here, and the city, has taken this position. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So, anyway, that was the main question I had for the applicant. I guess, could I ask him my other question that I asked Jim before about the concern was brought up about all the vehicles coming through for the construction, and
my concern with that is that
it opens up
before the commission tonight is the conditional use permit.
That's fine,
and not necessarily the building permit.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, all right.
There are, if I may, there are 2 responses. I'd like to respond to 2 issues. One has to do with an agreement. There is no agreement. There's never been an agreement. Nothing has been written and sent to each other to sign. Ms. Fury made reference to a meeting that we attended with she at that time was the HOA president and members of the board. At that time, Ms. Winder volunteered to agree to pay for 2 shares because of the size of the unit. Regardless of the fact that it's one residence, the HOA deemed because of the size, she should pay 2 shares. She agreed to that. She didn't fight it. It was overreaching, but it says, fine, if we can solve this, then let's get it done. We were supposed to meet again after the board spoke, and we were told after an attempt that they were only going to work through their attorney. Okay, so there was an impasse that was reached. When our attorney responded to council's letter, in that letter we stated that Ms. Winder was willing to stand by that offer to pay 2 shares. So is there an agreement? No. But offers have been made verbally as well as in writing. So I rehearsed the fact again. We're willing to sit down and to reasonably discuss what needs to be done and come to an accord. The second issue is on the easement. I think, Mr. Woodbury, that you made a reference to the road coming from the north.
Yeah, that was something that had been asked.
Right. Brought that up.
And it was brought up multiple times. And
I have the recorded plat with me, and when I was beginning my work with Ms. Winder, I came in and met with members of the planning staff, wanting to understand what could or could not be developed on the property. I've developed property throughout the West, and so I thought, well, here's an opportunity. You've got 1.6 acres, you've got an RM10 zone. Mm-hmm. Value is high. Mm-hmm. There were several people, several developers that looked at that, and they were turned away because, as I understand the statute, that the current zoning ordinance only allows 100 units on a cul-de-sac or on a closed road. Well, Springtree is a closed, there's no through traffic, and there's 104 units. So based on that, my understanding of the ordinance, the property would not qualify for anything other than a single family residence. I talked about a triplex, I talked about a duplex, just so that I understood what it was she was getting into. So based on my discussion, as I understood it, there wasn't nothing in writing. I didn't file a formal application. It was more just to understand what Murray City statute said. So when I went back to Ms. Winder, I said, you will have a single-family residence. And she said, that's what I want. I'm not here to develop it. I'm not looking to expand it. Now, there's an easement that's been referenced to the north, out to 5400 South. The recorded easement makes reference to that easement as number 8. And in it, it's very specific. It says that easement is only there to install a water line. It's very specific. It doesn't expand onto other uses. We paid a title company and a land surveyor to actually take the legal description, plot it, and then we had a title search, and that we looked back as far as we could find, and we could not find a recorded easement across the Johansson property which would allow access to 5400 South. Now, anecdotally, if we were interested and you could negotiate an agreement with the Johanssons to buy a right-of-way, a secondary right-of-way into the property, then the owner would be allowed to build a number of units. It's 1.6 acres, so roughly 15 units. If we were willing to spend the money to go through the issues of developing the property, that's what would have to happen. So that's a little bit of maybe too much information, but that's the background that we've gone through, or we've ascertained through the process.
Okay. No, I appreciate, Mr. Daly. Thank you for answering those questions, and the information is helpful to help me understand a little bit more.
Thank you.
So I don't know if other people have additional questions for the applicant.
Commissioners have any other additional questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll bring the issue up here, commissioners, for additional discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to recap a little bit of my understanding of the proceeding tonight. You know, we are here to consider a permitted request in a private residence to allow this conditional use. If we can impose reasonable conditions to mitigate any problems with this business in this area. I believe we've done a very good job of vetting the concerns and applying the conditions. And my concern is, if we do not support this, we are exposing ourselves and the city in general to further legal action. And I'm not comfortable with that. I personally, we haven't voted yet, but I personally feel very good about the process we've gone through this evening, and I'm looking forward to a vote.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Sorry,
Miss-
we can't.
There is no
No,
public
we're-
comment, sir.
We're
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I was on the board of the meeting he talked about.
Sir,
we go.
please,
Mr. Chairman.
We're close with public comment.
Jim, did you have another comment?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay. You know, and Mr. Chairman, if I can just add a little bit, you know, I kind of alluded to this earlier and just kind of wanted to, you know, wrap up my thoughts on it as well. You know, this is very, very similar to many of the businesses that we have in the city. You know, that people have a right with their property, you know, to follow the ordinances that the city has adopted, to follow, you know, Utah code, and to do those things with their property. There's so many times applicants have come in and they say, I don't want this, and we all know that the only way to ensure protection of a property is if you own it. As long as, if that's a permitted use, it's a permitted use. And so we try really hard, and I think the staff does a really good job. You know, my time here, I think, I felt very confident in the work that they go through, and balancing the rights of the landowner with the statutes and the legal obligations of the city, as well as taking in the feelings and trying to understand. Just because the city may not give the residents the result or exactly what they would like doesn't mean that they don't understand. Doesn't mean that we don't hear, because we do. We hear, we address them. That's why we've been talking about it for an hour and a half. And because number 5 condition is that the applicant is encouraged to work with the Spring Tree Condominium Owners Association. Those are in there to show that the city understands, has been through this before, and encourages you to work together to find a solution on those issues that are outside of the conditional use permit or the statutes that we have to enforce and are governed by. And so I want to thank everyone for coming out and for voicing their thoughts. And it's certainly important to understand, and knowing this is all on public record, so the applicant is here, has been able to hear it, and will be able to get a copy of, obviously public records requests, and can get those and see the comments that were expressed by the residents. So again, I'm a lot like Phil. I'm comfortable in this process because we've been through it. We've been through it over the last 7 years as I've been on the commission. And anyway, I guess that's all I'll say. So,
Any other commissioners want to make a comment?
My feelings about this application are really complex, because I do feel like this is a very unique application. Although we do receive applications for major home occupations quite frequently, and there's something that's very common in our city, this application in particular is like decisions had been made and things had been subdivided and roads had been created over time, and now we're all kind of living with those decisions. And so we're trying to help find the best way to balance everyone's needs. This is a really unusual property with a really unusual situation of concentrated people around it. And so I think that, we all are understanding that this is a very unique application, actually, that most major home applications that come in, it is a neighborhood comes in and people around are able to voice their concerns, and most of these things follow within exactly the same parameters. But if it were to happen in my neighborhood, I'm not surrounded by 100 condos. It's a very unusual situation. And so I see how this is really layered, and how we're trying to kind of bridge some of the maybe bad decisions or things that haven't worked out very well in the past, and now make it work for both groups. And so my feeling about that is, we all just need to do what everyone in Murray needs to do, which is to just make sure that we're neighborly. Meaning, if there was a major home occupation with one of my neighbors, it's something that's an allowed use. And it maybe is not exactly what I would want to go in, but I want to be a good neighbor. And so I would try to mitigate those impacts with my neighborhood or my house, and mitigate the impacts with the other neighbors. And that really is the situation that we're running into right now, is that I just want to strongly encourage both sides to work with the other side, and that it's not one person's fault or the other person's fault. We're in this situation. This is the situation that has been created. And so now, how do we bridge that gap? How do we find a solution? How do we make it work for both groups? And my decision personally is really based on, this is something that if anyone here were have to purchase that house that wasn't Miss Winder, they would be allowed to do this exact same thing. And so I have to follow what the statutes have laid out for me. And there's no other way to really explain that. I also come back to, I know so many people spoke about the private roads, and I know private roads are such a tricky and difficult thing to deal with. And they did look at the traffic generated, and it represents a 4% increase in the traffic that's already happening in the neighborhood. And so based on the city engineers and their studies and their numbers, that's kind of where I come back to, is This is something that could be in any neighborhood, in any city, place in Murray. And although we have this unique situation, these conditions, to me, are enough to mitigate the impact of what this business would be in a home. This isn't a commercial business. This is a home occupation.
And it's a home occupation that, as Condition 3 says, is limited and restricted to their growth.
Right. So it can't be a commercial business because we are trying to protect the neighborhoods from this exact thing.
You know, I think one thing that's been lost in the comments tonight as well, as we've gone on for quite some time, is, everyone is very worried about protecting their property and their rights and their environment. It's important to know that this property has rights, the same rights that all of you here have, the rights to enjoy their property and do what is ever legal and allowed in the community.
So before we vote, I want to say just a couple things. So this is obvious a contentious issue. Just passions are high on both sides of the fence, so to speak. And it sounds like there's already, even with some reconstruction of the residence, there's some issues between the homeowners association and the resident. And I'd agree with several of the other commissioners that regardless of how this committee votes tonight, the homeowners association, the residents, as well as the single home occupant need to have some good discourse, whether it be through the attorneys that you both have or HOA get-togethers. We're not going to resolve anything by not having good discussion on both sides. Other comments from the commissioners? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit allowing group instruction for yoga, holistic health, and nutrition within the single-family residence located at 604 East Taylor Lane in the RM10 zone, subject to the 5 conditions in the report.
I will second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, Zach.
Commissioner
roll.
Patterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Markham?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury?
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich?
Yes.
And Commissioner Hacker?
Yes.
Okay, did I miss anybody? I don't think I missed anyone.
So I would also remind all of you that this is a conditional use permit. Doesn't give the resident or the applicant authorization to have business in that property, so this issue will be heard again. And I look forward to seeing you all again.
No, the business license
It's a business.
will be
License will
issued.
be at the office.
Oh,
So-
excuse me.
No, this doesn't go to city council.
All right.
So, or the mail.
Sorry, retract.
If you have a question,
So
perhaps you
what we
can
need to
ask
do-
the staff
yeah.
after we're
What we need
finished.
to do now is clear the council chamber because we have other business,
So-
but staff can go out, other staff members that aren't presenting could go out and speak to some of the residents as well
Thank
as
you.
the
Sure.
applicant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, so item number 7, Murray
Let's
City.
give.
Yeah, let's just hold on a sec.
Let's give them about 30.
Ma'am.
No,
Sure, yes, ma'am.
all take more than 3 to 5 minutes. You only give us 3 to 5 minutes, and it's wrong. I wish everyone.
Meeting's not over, ma'am.
we need
Be
to go
quiet.
outside. Oh, okay.
I need to say this. I've lived 22 years there. We have a nice, tranquil, quiet area. We have had 14-ton trucks hauling dirt. They've destroyed.
But you know, they're
Sprinkler heads.
beautifying the property, and anytime I see someone come into Murray to beautify a property that is blighted,
Jim,
I
sorry
can't
about the-
fault that.
sorry about
But we
the,
can't talk to you right now because
We
we have
have-
another item.
Ma'am, we have more agenda items that we need to move on to.
It's okay,
We have,
ma'am.
we can't talk to you anymore, I'm sorry. We
She
have
needs-
another
she
item
needs
on our
to leave.
agenda.
She needs to leave.
Melinda, maybe you could talk to her. It's a low threat.
I bet you're glad you came to this meeting.
I know, sorry that you've been waiting. I know, we should have bumped you. We should have, sorry.
All right.
We should have bumped him up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, so we have item number 7, Murray Planning Division proposed text amendment to the Murray City Land Use Ordinance, specifically section 17.160.050A, front setback on outdoor dining.
Correct, and thank you. So this is an item that the Planning Commission heard previously. Sorry, I was trying to get to my notes, but that was a fun item. Sorry. Anyways, so we held a public hearing on February 21st, 2019. There was a public hearing, we received public comment, and then continued the item until tonight, April 18th, 2019. Prohibition Bar requested the addition of language which would permit an encroachment into the required 20-foot building setback to allow covered outdoor dining within 10 feet of the property line for restaurants and bars in the CD zone. Now, to be more specific, and we've looked at these pictures before, and I think you're each familiar with the location. They proposed a certain area, a certain geographic area around the mall that this would be allowed, that we would allow this outdoor dining to encroach within 10 feet. Staff had some concerns. We liked the idea, but not exactly the way the application was formed. We recommended that the item be continued so we could go and have a discussion with the City Council. We were able to have a discussion with the City Council on April 2nd, 2019, during the Committee of the Whole, just a couple weeks ago. They reviewed that and gave us their feedback, and the feedback was, we like this, but we want it to be citywide in the CD zone. We want everybody that has property zone CD throughout the city to have this opportunity if they'd like to have outdoor dining or have the type of establishment that would encourage outdoor dining. So we don't want to put that limitation on it. We just want it to be citywide. Now, some of the concerns that we heard previously about this, because of some of the others that have been done recently in the city, is what about compatibility, materials, colors, how will it match with the building? What about minimum parking requirements, that we don't encroach into those areas and violate parking requirements? That there isn't any negativity or negative impact of vehicular or pedestrian safety. We know in a lot of cases you have that continuous access, or reciprocal access is a term that's used from one property owner to the next. If we have that situation, they can't do it. It's case by case. You have to meet a certain set of criteria. You have to go through a process, and that will include bringing it to the Planning Commission to get your approval or acceptance of them to do the outdoor dining. So based on that, we recommend the language that we've presented to the Planning Commission. We'd recommend that you forward this language, or this a recommendation of approval to the City Council. The section 17.160.05A, the first part will remain. The minimum depth of the front yard for main buildings shall be 20 feet. The first 10 feet of property, except for drive approaches, shall be landscaped as herein specified. And then this is the added language, and you can follow along in your report on page 4. Covered and unenclosed outdoor dining areas for eating or drinking establishments may be allowed to encroach up to 10 feet if the Planning Commission finds that the proposed outdoor dining area meets the following criteria. First, architecturally compatible with the form, materials, and colors of the main building. Second, does not result in a violation of minimum parking requirements. Third, does not negatively impact vehicular or pedestrian safety. Next, does not impede access to adjoining or nearby properties. And last, maintains or provides the required 10-foot of landscaped setback as herein specified. And we'd recommend that you give a recommendation of approval of that language. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for Jim?
Not right now.
Oh, I like it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
Open
can.
it up public.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Applicant, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Come on up.
And then public.
Thank you
name
for-
and address for the record, please.
Terry Wasmer, 15067 South Eagle Crest Drive. This has been a challenge for me personally working on with the city, but the city's been great. I know Jared's not here, but Jared's been a great help for us in understanding how to achieve a common goal. And we want to work within, of course, rules and regulations of the city. I think we're very happy with opening it up to the whole city. That is, it's totally acceptable. We thought maybe just keep it in the downtown area. There were other areas that we were allowed it, but to have all of our neighbors have the same opportunity sounds great to us. So, thank you. That's all.
All right, hang on, stay there. Questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
I just want
He
to know,
answered my question.
does he always dress like that?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
You gotta
I mean,
go,
it's fine.
you gotta go to
90
Prohibition.
to
you'll see.
150 hours a week, yes.
Yeah, I think it looks good, and you know, it's
I think you and your business partner were both sharply dressed.
Yeah.
yeah,
Similar, and you are again.
yeah.
So while you're there at the mic, I would say that we
We were
thank
contributing
you
to
and think a lot of
places.
you're bringing this to the city's attention, to our attention. And I think, I won't speak for all the commissioners, but I think because of that, I think we have a better ordinance in
Yep,
place
absolutely,
today
absolutely.
Absolutely.
than before,
Thank you.
before you
Good
came
change,
to us.
for sure.
So we'll see how this impacts other businesses around you and how those businesses take business away from you.
Well, Junior was very happy about the news, and I think I've got a fair amount of free ramen coming my way.
So, however, we appreciate that and the time that you've taken out of your business days to help the city do more for ourselves.
Great.
Thank you.
I guess do we continue public comment since it's a
We-
continuation,
did
Jim,
we-
or what?
No.
We've
So
already
it's
had
closed?
a comment.
Yes.
Public
Okay.
comment's closed, okay.
Okay,
Cool.
I think it's awesome.
All right.
We need to do that more
Unless
often.
you specifically want to open it up. But you don't.
Well, I mean,
You took it last time.
Nope, but I'd like to make a motion.
I think
Can I ask Jim one
we're
question?
good with
Oh, wait,
not
we got a question.
having public
For
comment.
Jim, for the staff, can I just, I think it's self-evident, but I still like to ask it for the record. So if someone builds one of these awnings for shade for their customers within regulations, and then their business closes down, the awning's there, and next business comes in, when they apply for a business license, if they don't qualify for the awning, we'll ask them to remove it? Is that how this works? It's not called an awning, it's called a
The overhang.
overhang.
Overhang. Well, if it's been a restaurant or a place that serves spirits or other things, it's probably going to stay the same, and it's probably going to be a same type of business. Of course, if there's a change of use and someone comes in and buys it, it's likely they would remove it because they don't offer a food or outdoor dining. So it would be case by case. Again, it's unenclosed. It's a covered, unenclosed dining. Once you enclose it, it has to meet the same setback as the primary structure, so it has to stay unenclosed.
And then the ordinance states it's for specific, like, restaurants or bars. So if they,
Correct.
for example, a bike shop moved in and they wanted to display bikes out there, when they applied for the business license, it wouldn't be allowed.
Not in this case. I mean, that's something at some point we could look at, and some of these businesses do have outdoor display, but that's something we'd have to look at case by case. But in this case, I would see another restaurant or bar and grill type use is the highly likelihood.
Right.
Is more likely, I'm sorry.
All right. For
You
the
guys are doing
record,
pretty good.
I'm going to open this up for public comment.
That's fine.
I see no public comment. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for.
And now I'm going to make a motion.
Do it.
I would like to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the staff alternative proposed text amendment to section 17.160.050 B of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance as outlined in the staff report.
All right. I have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Question on the motion. There was a
You said
mistake.
B.
It's
Did I make a
actually
mistake?
A. It's actually
Oh,
050A.
Oh, mine says B, sorry.
And that, we just found that today. I don't want to
Sorry.
throw him under the bus, but Jared made a
Okay,
mistake.
I'll say it again. I would like to
Jared
forward
again.
a recommendation of
Jared.
approval to the City
He's
Council
traveling. Yeah.
for the staff alternative proposed text amendment to section 17.160-050A of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you.
All right. I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? So, Zach, would you call a voice?
Yep.
Vote.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury,
Yep.
Commissioner Markham,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
and Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you again for bringing us to the city. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
All right, other business from the staff?
I'll come tell you. Thank you. I just wanted to let you know that our next meeting in 2 weeks is on May 2nd, early in the month. You probably have received the agenda that went out already that Susan sent out. We had a total of 4 items. One of interest that we think is really cool is the indoor vertical farming, and there's more to come with that. There's a lot of that going on. I think when we bring that to you in 2 weeks on May 2nd, I think we have the ability in here to show you a short video that we found on YouTube. Other communities doing just that. It's really all the rage right now.
Can they farm hemp?
That will be another ordinance that will be coming before you. This
I was gonna say, I was
this
curious
case
about
is
that
not
one,
hemp,
'cause-
but that other cities have been adopting ordinances. Our Bryant has been working on an
Brian's our
ordinance.
hemp expert.
He is, and he's been working
He
on a
looks
draft
like it.
ordinance, and I need
Got
to
the
sit down.
munchies.
I need to sit down with Melinda and other staff members because I've had a chance to review it, and I think it's quite good. So we need to sit and talk about it, and that will come before you soon. And I want to thank the Planning Commission for your diligent effort, your professionalism, and how you conducted yourself tonight. You did terrific. That was a hard item. We had some folks that seemed nice and others that were not so nice. And the whole time I was up here, I heard a number of conversations and people wanting to throw me under the bus. So thank you for your professionalism. You did a great job. They have attorneys. I think they know that they can appeal this to our hearing officer. And we'll see more to come on this one. It could be a possibility.
Yep.
You know,
And
thank-
with those
thank
are
you
my
for
items.
having the
Yeah.
police officer here, even though I didn't feel threatened. It's just nice. that
Ned did at the
it
end.
helps to have a little more order.
so-
you know, he can clear the room and help us restore order. And that was very
My heart's
nice.
still pounding.
My
Yeah.
97-year-old
good.
mother is older than this woman, so I wasn't afraid of her.
And
Oh no!
you know what?
Or you knew you should be afraid of
You
it.
know what? So
I just wanted to finish the meeting. I
I
got to go to
just,
the bathroom.
I just
All right,
wanted
so
to,
we need to close this. How
I
about
just wanted to nicely help her outside, and she told me that. Wow.
this is the passion, and like I said, it's contentious, and the business isn't even there yet, and passions are high on both sides, and it's very obvious that we will hear more about this.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Ned, well done.